Fantastic. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We are about ready to call to order our August Parks and Rec Commission meeting. And let's do so with a quick roll call. Let's go down by the list. Richard Conway, that's me. I'm here. Co-Chair Parsons.
I'm here.
Hello, Co-Chair Parsons. Commissioner Kerr.
Here.
Hello, Commissioner Kerr. Commissioner Martin.
Here.
Welcome, Commissioner Martin. Commissioner Rowden. Don't hear Commissioner Rowden just yet. Commissioner Stackhouse.
Here.
Commissioner Stackhouse. And lastly, Commissioner McLeod.
Here.
Hello, Commissioner McLeod. All right. And Councilmember Harris, are you on the call today?
Yes, here.
Hi, welcome, Councilmember Harris. Okay, roll call has been completed. Let's roll into the approval of the July minutes that were provided as part of our meeting packets. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to review those by now. If so, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the July minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Hearing and seeing none, let's move on to the public participation. This portion of the meeting is for items that are not on the agenda. The commission cannot act on items presented during the public participation of the agenda. The commission is prohibited by the open meeting law from discussing or considering the item until the item is officially placed on an agenda. And we ask that comments are limited to 5 minutes. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak today? Anybody online? There's a lot of names on there. Anybody hand up? All right, looks like everybody's here on official business that's on the agenda today. So let's go ahead and get going with item number 4, which is a Sun Corridor Trail presentation.
So I'll kick us off. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Rebecca Sayers. I'm the PROS director. Amy Hagan has been working with this group along with, we have Martin Ince here as well. City staff that have been working with this group. Amy is unable to be here with us today. But we have several representatives here, and Serena, if I could just toss it to you and let you run that.
Thanks so much. I appreciate everybody taking the time and allowing us to speak here. I am Serena Rana. I own a company called Trails Inspire that promotes the outdoors through writing, photography, public speaking, and trail design. And I also develop community town programs. I was the one that developed the Gateway Community Program for the Arizona Trail. And so it's exciting for me to be here talking to you about the Sun Corridor Trail. And I've got some folks with me. I've got Jay Hicks and his team from Dig Studio that will be doing part of the presentation about how we're looking at routing the Sun Corridor Trail. And as well, we've got our Park Service, Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance partner, Brandon Stocksdale, and our brand new intern, Mickey, on the call. So thanks, everybody. I will start with this presentation. Is that coming up?
Yeah. There we go. Almost.
How about now?
Yeah,
Yes.
we're good.
Okay, great, thanks. Nothing like technology, even after all these years. So we're the Sun Corridor Trail Alliance, and I'll be talking about our trail concept and how Flagstaff can fit into this new trail that will go, when it's complete, it will go from the southeastern corner of Arizona near Douglas all the way to Las Vegas. And so our agenda for today's meeting is to just discuss what kind of partnerships that Flagstaff and the Sun Corridor Trail can do to help each other, promote each other. As we all know, Flagstaff's a great example of a community that really makes the most of its outdoor offerings. And so I'm excited to be here today. So we'll go over the trail history, the benefits of trails and trail towns. We're on an Arizona Office of Tourism grant right now. That is a 2-year grant. I'll talk a little more about that. Give you a trail overview and the concept route. Then Dig Studio, who has been doing some of the routing research in the Flagstaff area, will give a presentation about what they're doing. Then we'll talk about ways to partner and what next steps and questions you guys might have. So, purpose of this presentation is to inform and update you about the project, to discuss the Flagstaff Loop as the Sun Corridor Trail route, and explain how the SCTA would like to proceed from a marketing and economic development aspect. So the benefits of trails, like I said, Flagstaff is well versed in these all these benefits, and you've done a fantastic job with your outdoor recreation and promoting it not only to people that are visiting, but also people in the state and in the town itself. Reduce medical costs by encouraging exercise, provides safe commuting options, increases the ease of access to the outdoors, enhances physical, emotional, and spiritual health, economic benefits, increased spending at community businesses and for local services, increasing the number of nights that's spent in a community, increased property values, tax revenues, and attracts new businesses. So the history of the Sun Corridor Trail, in 2013, Steve Anderson, who's the Trails Director of Pima County, and RJ Carden, who's the Trails Director of Maricopa County, were discussing these 2 loop trails that they had proposed. And they were at a trails conference, and as happens at trail conferences, they were having a beer afterwards and got out a napkin and started writing down some ideas about how Maricopa County and Pima County could connect through Pinal County to make a larger trail out of these loops. And then after that idea, this led to looking at opportunities to connect existing and potential loop trails to the north and south. And this trail is a work in progress. So this is what I'm talking about as a concept. A lot of it is in progress right now. We have a lot of plans, and Brandon can actually speak to some of those plans for the future, and you'll hear about that from Dig Studio. And it's a work in progress through a multi-agency effort led by county, city, state, and federal entities in partnership with the Sun Corridor Trail Alliance. So when complete, the Sun Corridor Trail concept will extend approximately 1,500 miles from the Mexican border in Douglas in Cochise County to Las Vegas, Nevada. It'll include loops around cities or metropolitan areas along the route, including Tucson, Phoenix, Prescott, Sedona, Flagstaff, Kingman, and Las Vegas. And you can see on this map that we've got parts of the trail that are open that are generally the circle trails around communities. So starting out in the south in Tucson, it's the Loop. Phoenix, it's the Maricopa Trail. Prescott, it's the Prescott Circle Trail, and Flagstaff's Loop. So this is, and then the dotted lines are possible connections. And like I said, Dig Studio will be talking more about those possibilities. We are right now working with an Arizona Office of Tourism grant that we got for a 2-year grant period. We got $250,000 in November 2021. And so the Dig Studio research, the route research and planning is part of it. Trails Inspire, the trail towns and community building is another part of it. And Reister is our marketing firm that works with me to produce any kind of marketing materials, works on our website. We have a brand new logo, and any kind of support that I need for development and marketing. So trail towns have a very important place in the outdoor community. And like I said, Flagstaff knows this better than most. I don't really have to sell you on the idea of recreation being a good thing for your town, but just to go over, trail users get a place to eat and stay. They get stores for supplies and gear. They can visit nearby attractions to enhance their visit and stay longer. I'll talk more about this in the next slide, but this idea is called a credit card trail or a credit card route rather than a remote backcountry experience. So whereas the Arizona Trail is single track backcountry, this is pretty much the opposite. And I'll go over that a little bit more in the next slide. And then the trail towns, the businesses see more customers associated with the trail. There's economic development through tourism dollars and sustainability of the trail. Familiarity with the trail leads to spreading the word and more trail users in your town. It'll connect Arizona and Nevada, 9 counties and over 40 cities or towns. And 23 of those 40 plus cities or towns are located in rural areas of Arizona. So that's real important to bring that economic development to these small communities as well. So the credit card trail or credit card touring is a concept that you can learn more about it. It has an extensive website at creditcardbiketouring.com. It's a concept that is more popular in the overseas in the East Coast. They have trails that are similar to this, but there's not really anything that's been established in the West. And so that's one of the reasons why we're looking at this particular type of trail. And so the idea is, so there's traditional bike packing with giant panniers and all sorts of gear and, supplies and food. This is basically the opposite of that. The idea is to travel by bike and get food, lodging, and supplies on the way, as opposed to carrying everything on your bike. So it's a light and fast style. And the development of the Sun Corridor concept is based on this style, but it also appeals to, we're also making sure it appeals to other trail users, hiking, runners, limited equestrian use. So the concept of the trail development is based on this style, and Dig Studio is trying to determine the route so that trail users can bike from town to town each day and going no more than about 30 to 40 miles, being able to resupply on the fly, stay in towns, eat in towns, so that you're not carrying a whole lot on your bike. The ideal bike type is a gravel bike, and most of the Sun Corridor Trail will be on dirt. There is the Tucson Loop Trail is paved, but also has excellent infrastructure for accommodating bikes. And so the concept is an urban front country trail that also travels through rural areas. So like I said, in contrast to the Arizona Trail, where you're traveling days and days on end, carrying a bunch of things, this is more of a light and fast approach. This is our rack card and marketing. I will be able to provide some rack cards and other marketing materials to the city of Flagstaff and the visitor center. I spoke to them a couple months ago when I was in town. And so this just gives a overview of our trail concept and our ideas of what we'd like the trail to be. And this gives them an opportunity to use the QR code to get to our website to learn more information. Go over some existing and planned trail segments. So in Pima County, the Chuck Huckleberry Loop is 131 miles of multi-user trail. And here's a map of it. And that will get us from the southeastern end of Pima County to the northwestern end. And it was voted best recreational trail by USA Today for the second year in a row in 2022. It's a fantastic opportunity for outdoor recreation. I've hiked the entire thing, and it's wonderful. It's got great resources and really beautiful way to get around the city. The Tucson to Douglas concept would be rails to trails connections that eventually connect up to the loop from Douglas. The Maricopa Trail is 315 miles and encompasses the Phoenix metropolitan area. And the Sun Circle Trail is the original 128-mile metropolitan loop that shares a portion of the new Maricopa Trail. So you can see that in red and blue on this map. In Pinal County, there is the CAP National Recreation Trail, which is in the process of being completed. And that will use the canals as a backbone for getting from northern Pima County all the way to Apache Junction. The Prescott Circle Trail is 54 miles long, and the Peavine Trail connects Prescott with the Chino Valley to the north. You guys are real familiar with this one, the Flagstaff Loop Trail. And then here's some of the ideas that Las Vegas has. Right now, they're doing an overhaul of their outdoor recreation bureau, and so we're waiting to hear a little bit more about them, about what their plans are as far as connecting these existing trails to the Sun Corridor Trail. So some of the Trail Town partnership deliverables that we're thinking about, and as the Sun Corridor Trail Alliance, promotion and branding is Sun Corridor Trail Towns. We are developing a website page that will highlight all of the different communities that are on the trail. And there will be links to local resources. Jay will show you a little bit more about that in his presentation. Inclusion in social media campaigns, also inclusion in event tabling and things like that, presence at events, and to develop partnerships with local businesses and highlight them on the website and on our signage and promotional materials. And in the future, we'd like to include and participate in economic impact studies that show the impact of the trail, development of individual trail town maps with local businesses and services, and trail town signage and community information at kiosks to encourage trips into town. The benefits include improvements in the economy, increased stewardship, and health of residents and visitors. When I had spoken to Amy a couple months back when we were setting this up, one of the questions was that we need to determine what type of document would need to be signed in a partnership with the city of Flagstaff. If that's an MOU that we provide, or if there's a licensing agreement from the city, that's something that we can discuss more going forward. Here's some of our partners and working groups across the different counties and communities. And now I'm going to send this over to Dig Studio and Jay and Danielle so they can share what they've been doing.
Thanks, Serena. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. I'm Danielle, and I'm having, Jay's actually having some technical difficulties. He's here on the call with us, but you'll be hearing from me today. So as long as you can see my screen, we're good to go. As Serena was saying, we have been tasked with the trail alignment, and the most of our research has really been in that area between Flagstaff to Lake Havasu, primarily because it's the most difficult section to determine the trail alignment of this entire Sun Corridor. Just a kind of a brief look at where we were using as a study area, and not just us here at Dig Studio, but we also worked with NAU students and Franklin over at NAU to do some field research on some of these trails. So just a kind of a quick recap of the different trail criteria that were involved in this. NAU students worked on one type of trail selection criteria back in 2020 through 2022. And during that time, we were able to collect the different considerations that they used in their trail selection criteria, and then kind of build our own off of that. So starting with Adam Smatt's trail selection criteria, he really looked at a lot of what is now on that Flagstaff loop and to the south of Flagstaff, connecting Prescott to Flagstaff. And his approach, being in the area and being an avid cyclist, was really this wide net approach and examining all the Forest Service roads and trails in the area. He looked at kind of this inclusion versus exclusion of roads and trails. So things that were included in whether a trail was included were the aesthetics, the experience, the length, the traffic, the exposure, and the cultural immersion of the trail. But if there were areas that were not bikeable or had too much of a grade, or they determined were too seasonal, if they had high-speed traffic, and if they were under any type of wilderness or private land management, those were not looked at and they were just immediately excluded in the data. After Adam went through his research, he created kind of like a 1 through 5 ranking system, which then Cameron Kotner's research really built upon. And it took Adam's search criteria and really funneled it down into a more refined search, building on this rating system. And the rating system took these different considerations, and rather than saying that trail was then included or excluded from the data, it had a 1 through 5 rating based on how difficult the trail was, what that moving speed was, how long those sections of trails were, and so forth. When we started working with NAU, we asked to learn about their trail selection criteria, but we also didn't want it to create a bias in our own trail selection. So we didn't look at their final trails that were selected. For instance, you can see Cameron's trails here. The image is up on the top right-hand corner. We did not receive this information until just about a month ago after we had done our trail selection. So at DIG, being down in Phoenix, being a little bit farther away in proximity, and also wanting to take a different approach, we knew we couldn't cast this wide net approach to research and do a field study of every single trail between Flagstaff and Lake Havasu. So we started building our research on this pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, essentially first looking at how the trail could meet physiological needs, such as essential services like food, water, and shelter, and then building off of that. So the first thing we did was we did a complete inventory of all of the grocery stores, convenience stores, and restaurants between Flagstaff and Lake Havasu. We then looked at lodging, and in considering lodging, what we wanted to look at primarily were opportunities where riders or people on the trail would not have to pack gear such as tents or sleeping bags. So we looked at hotels, and then we extended that to look at glamping opportunities that would provide those services such as a bed and linens, but be a bit more rustic, because with hotels alone, we still had quite a bit of gaps in our research. And what I mean by those gaps is what we did was we put a 30-mile buffer around these areas. The reason for that being, as Serena mentioned, we're in working towards building this credit card tourism experience and considering the reality of how far people could go from day to day. We wanted to build a trail that wouldn't go beyond 30 miles of both those food resources and lodging resources. So you can see here an overlay of food being in yellow. The purple is glamping, the blue is hotels. In the green, we actually had to bring in some camping. We had to bring in some camping inventory as well to see where we could connect that data. But as you start to see, it started to build kind of these two main stems of the potential of a trail going north, up and along Route 66, as well as a trail that heads south down towards Chino Valley and where the Prescott Circle Trail connects, and over through the south side over to Lake Havasu. You can see that here. So after we had done an inventory of an analysis of the essential services, we started to look at accessibility, that being the trail and road surface type, the trails that included the most user types, so that both cyclists, equestrians could be using this trail. And then we started to narrow down the point-to-point trails that had the least elevation gain and loss and were of the least grade change on either a dirt or gravel surface. And from this data, there's still some that we haven't collected. Not all of the elevation gain and loss we were able to collect over GIS and other resources. And so we have started our second level of research, which is our field research, or what we're calling windshield view field research, which I'll explain a little bit more in a minute. The third level of our search criteria was the safety. So looking at which roads were shared, and if it was a shared road, if there was a shoulder and what the speed limit was on that road, because there are areas in connecting some of these destinations along Route 66 that you just realistically can't avoid pavement. We have looked into some kind of creative alternatives in that area, but if the route is ultimately going to end up on Route 66, considering how wide that shoulder is in that area, or if there's opportunities for a multi-use path along the side of the road of Route 66. We also considered cell phone reception, and that's something that's really coming into our windshield level of field research, where we're able to drive some of these roads and look at where cell phone reception actually is working and where it's not. And then our last level of search criteria gets into points of interest. So considering where these trails can loop or link into cities, cultural and natural points of interest, and also looking at what's available on the web through other riders that have ridden in the area and areas that other riders in the area have considered to be preferred routes or points of interest. So all of this information that we've collected, have since shared both with Brandon and Franklin to work with NAU and determine how we can combine both of these search criterias into one by refining it and creating some new considerations. And the purpose of that would then to be able to have a very clear search criteria so that when we go into field testing, we can have a select group of students who go out into the field and are able to qualify and quantify the data. So what's been done so far, both the student research and in-office research through DIG, the next step over the next 3 weeks, and we've been doing this for a few weeks now, we'll continue to do some windshield view field research, so essentially driving down a lot of these Forest Service roads. And then step 3, moving into the fall, once the temperatures cool down a bit and moving into the following year, is to work with NAU and students to be able to do some of that hike and bike field research. Here's just a quick example of some of the creative alternative approaches we're looking at. So we have some open source writer data, and we have field tested some sections. And one area that we're considering that has kind of come through the research that we've been doing are some of these public utility easements. So looking at roads that are both scenic and very protected, don't receive a lot of traffic, connecting these areas between Flagstaff and Williams, and also potentially from Williams or Schligman down to Chino Valley. There are a few of these gas and power lines that also go up into the Peach Springs area and then down from Kingman to Lake Havasu. So working with private and public landowners and stakeholders to see if that's even an opportunity, because it's in terms of a precedent, it's been done in other states very successfully as far as using these utility corridors for recreational trails. And even in Flagstaff, there being an area that goes under some of the power lines on the south end of Flagstaff on some of the more rugged mountain bike trails. We did do some field testing on the south end coming out of Flagstaff up into Forest Service roads. and were quickly in areas that were impassable by car and determined that those would not be ideal for this gravel bike multi-use idea and concept of a credit card trail, but would be more of a rugged or primitive experience of like a single track mountain bike or hiking trail. So there's still more research in that area in the orange there that says impassable, where we felt that there was both an issue with the grade in terms of it being appropriate for this trail type, as well as the lack of cell phone service and the possibility of recreationalists getting out into an area where they didn't have access to emergency services. So that area we see as not ideal, but we do see some other sections in that area above Chino Valley on some of the other Forest Service roads that we're gaining some new information, such as in our GIS data, some of those trails say that they're natural material and unpaved and not gravel, but have recently been regraded or graveled for forest thinning projects. And so they may actually be more accessible than our computer data originally led us to believe. So we do want to explore that area some more. And with that, I'll pass it back over to Serena, or if there are any questions.
Great. Thanks so much for that presentation. Yeah, I also wanted to see if Brandon, if you have anything to add to what we've discussed so far.
Yeah, I'll take a second. Just I'll introduce myself real quick. My name is Brandon Stockstill. I'm with the National Park Service. I'm a community planner with the Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. Some of y'all may have worked with Laura Bulliard or Adam Milnor in the past from our program. They're based in Arizona. But I've been working with the Sun Corridor Trail Alliance since the end of 2019, helping them get organized as a group and organize their planning process through an action plan and these various grants and subcontractors that they've been working with to do this process. I think one of the things we wanted to emphasize today is that this is an iterative process. You've seen from the recommendations they presented that we're really looking at identifying existing routes rather than creating new routes and new maintenance obligations. So it's more about connecting these opportunities. And again, understanding that we're going from a 30,000 foot concept to now the 10,000 foot alignment, and then eventually that'll drop down to ground level, where we'll be looking at actual on the ground alignments, easements, right of ways, trailheads, access points, etc. So that's our main goal today, is providing you with this update and information, and this Trailtown MOU that Serena is developing would be that next step. We've already got a county level MOU between the Sun Corridor Alliance and the various counties that the trail would run through. So this Trailtown's MOU would be that 10,000 foot level that would help us to further explore planning alignments, start applying this criteria once it's refined. Start some of that branding and marketing and advertising that she's talked about. And then again, in the future, as we get those things finalized, there'd be more specific right-of-way or easement or whatever those need to be, agreements or management plans or whatever that would look like. But we're excited to engage your community in this process. Flagstaff's a leader not only in Arizona, but throughout the West in trails and outdoor recreation. And we think this will be an asset to your community. So yeah, if you have any questions, we're happy to answer as best we can.
I'll just do one more slide about next steps and things that we're considering. So next steps. Oh, come back. No. All right, I'll just do it over here. So next steps, turning our concept and making it more towards a reality would be Trailtown's participation. we're going to be having a series of stakeholders meetings. I will send an invite to the stakeholders meeting we're having, I believe it's the 6th of November. And that's all stakeholders of the Sun Corridor, corridor. So continued route development and ground truthing, like Dig Studio was talking about, and then development of a second action plan with Brandon that will go through 2025. And on the marketing end of things, our website, Sun Corridor Trail, is in development, and we're refining that all the time. Promotional materials distribution, like the rack card that I mentioned, event tabling, social media development, and quarterly newsletters. So those are some of our hopes for the future. Now I will send it over for discussion and questions.
Thank you so much. That was an amazing presentation. I actually
Glad you enjoyed it.
work for the county, so I hired Adam Smith. He was my program coordinator for Parks and Rec. So I know he's a
Awesome.
great guy. Worked with Brian Gruby, who did a lot for this project back in the day. So yeah, I think it's a great project. I now open up to commissioners. Does anybody in the room have any questions, or online have any questions for the group?
I do, Ricky.
All right, perfect. Go ahead, co-chair.
I'm just wondering, so you're using all existing roads or utility corridors? There's no new trail building or overlap with any single track like Arizona Trail or anything like that, or is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We're trying not to create new trails that have to be maintained and all of that. You know, they have to be built, they have to be maintained, all of that. If we can use existing routes, then that is what we'll use.
Will there be, have you identified any sections of those corridors that would need to have some improvements at this point, or is it the intent not to do any improvements on any section?
So at this point, I don't think we've gotten quite to that detail level yet, but that will definitely be something that will be considered. I think just taking the, most scenic, least effort in adopting it route, I think is probably some of the criteria selection.
And then I have just one final question, and that's kind of the time frame for when you expect maybe to have a finalized route map out there.
That's a Brandon question.
Yeah, we got that question from the folks down in Tucson last week. At this point, I think it's still a little nebulous. Again, understanding this is an iterative process, so we're getting all of these reports in right now from the subcontractors that are on this call that have been part of the Arizona Office of Tourism grant. I'm doing an arrangement right now with the National Park Service and Northern Arizona University to do 2 years of funding for field testing of the recommendations we're getting in this report. So I would say it's probably still going to be another year or two out, but we will be doing more active field work, particularly in your area, because of your proximity to NAU. I'll be coming through that area the beginning of November as well, probably for a couple of days of meetings and site visits as well.
That's all I had. I want to say thanks for the presentation. That was great. I think it's a great idea.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Councilmember Harris, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to ask a direct question. So what's this going to cost a city or county or whatever? Or have you gotten to that point yet?
Yeah, so again, at this point, we're transitioning from that conceptual level, and we're still refining that, because we're trying to do this or identify most of these routes through existing trails. Or our plan is not to create substantial maintenance obligations by creating new trail systems. Serena talked about the gravel bike concept. We're using that kind of as that lowest common denominator of user groups. But do expect this to be a multimodal trail, so non-motorized, but to have pedestrian, bike, potentially equestrian. So we would be looking at those multimodal trails or low, low use, low speed, low impact non-paved roads through the area as well. So I don't know, so we can't give you a specific answer right now, but again, our goal is to make this as minimally impactful and create the minimum amount of obligation as possible.
So basically, there will be a charge to the counties, cities that participate in this. Is that correct or not? So this is going to be free for us if we come on board, or no?
Yeah, that's not something that the Sun Corridor Alliance board has talked about explicitly yet. Is, would there be some
Okay.
kind of a membership fee or something for partners? At this point, it's more of a, again, the agreements we're looking at as our next steps are towards planning. But I don't know, that really hasn't been discussed at this point.
Okay.
We were hoping
Thank you.
that this would be more of like an introductory meeting so that we can, talk about the concept and then also keep you informed of what has happened and take these questions back to the board as well.
Yeah, that's definitely something we'd want to we'll take back to the board and look at some of these other similar trail systems. Like Serena said, there's a couple in the Midwest and on the East Coast that have more of this front country trail experience that we're looking at. So that's something we can research and see how those associations interact with those local communities to maintain those routes.
Thank you.
Commissioners, Parks and Rec staff, anybody else, any questions about the Sun Corridor Trail?
Anything to add, or you good?
I think I'm good, thank you.
Martin is good. Nothing here.
Well, nothing. All right. Well, once again, thank you so much for your time today. That was such a great presentation, very informative. I love the idea, and I hope to see this continue to progress as it has over the past several years now. I mean, gosh, I can't believe that. Did you say 2013 that started as an idea on a napkin? And is that what it was?
Yep.
And here we are, 2023 with progress and more to come. This is great.
Yeah, and the Arizona Office of Tourism is really enthusiastic about this project just because it does bring so many people into communities and towns for economic development. And so they're really, really excited about this project as well. And so I'll put together a follow-up email and we can discuss, next steps. I'll also make sure that you're invited to our all stakeholders meeting in November.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ray. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Oh, that's fantastic. All right. Next on the agenda, it appears we have commissioner appointments. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Harris, is your hand back up?
Yes, it is. I just want to say that I'm just always a little concerned when people come to you with a project and they're kind of wavering on if there's going to be any costs, because we all know the reality is that there are going to be some costs to whatever this is, whether that's a membership fee or whatever. So I would have felt a lot better if they had, just kind of been upfront, and I didn't feel like they were being upfront about that. But that's my own personal opinion. Doesn't mean anything. I'm just sharing that. And it's not that I'm against it or anything like that. So I'm just sharing my opinion.
Well, thank you for that. And that's, I appreciate that you're part of this group and that, we appreciate that perspective and the ability for you to ask those questions right to the people. That's fantastic. I mean, that's all part of this process. So thank you so much for providing that, for being here and providing that that perspective and that expertise when it comes up.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely. Moving now to commissioner appointments, please.
Right, hang on. Let me make this.
Thank you.
Better. In there. Okay, so I think we put this on the agenda because there have been some questions, and also we have 3 commissioners whose last meeting technically is today. So we also wanted an opportunity to say goodbye to our wonderful chair, Mr. Conway. Because as I understand it, you are moving on.
That is correct. I have very much enjoyed this experience, and I appreciate you welcoming me and training me and getting me underway. But I am ending at the end of this term, which is apparently this meeting. So I really appreciate it. But thank you. I have left Parks and Rec as a profession, and so I feel like I need to take a little bit of time to break away, and then hopefully come back in the future.
Well, we really appreciate your service, and I'm sure I speak for everyone in appreciation of your time and your leadership in taking on the role of chair.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
So we also have 2 other commissioners that are at the end of their current terms, but they are interested in reappointment. And so thank you, Commissioners Martin and Commissioner Kerr. We are in receipt of both of your applications. I confirm that today. And so what the city clerk will do is take these 3 appointments to the council on August 28th. So that hopefully we will be fully, what am I trying to say? We'll be full again before our September meeting. So council will be able to make those appointments on August 28th, and they'll be able to start as soon as they take their training, which is all online now. From the emails that I've seen, we've got a lot of interest. There are quite a few applicants on file. The potential elephant in the room is, do current commissioners get any sort of like priority or notice or anything? And the answer is not really, but certainly it depends on which council member. It's a random generator of which council member appoints the different, gosh, I'm sorry, I can't speak today. Each position. And it's really kind of up to that council member and their appointment. But I do know that most council members appreciate the service, especially if you're engaged and wanting to continue that service. So I do think they take that into account. So I do have the roster up here. I've just been trying to slowly scroll through it so you can take note of your own. I don't know that I have the updates for any training. Hopefully you've all done that. That's this 3rd column. But I will get an updated roster after this August 28th meeting. And then Amy and I will reach out to the new, we'll have at least one new commissioner, and we'll reach out to them to get them online pretty quickly.
I've done the training before.
That's
in a really long time. Is that the only one required?
That's the only one required. You're always welcome to refresh if you need to. I think it's all online, so
Yeah.
It's always good to refresh, especially about open meeting law, and because you guys can get in trouble pretty easily without even knowing it with open meeting law. So
Can you refresh our memory on the length, the maximum length that you're able to serve on?
yeah, that was a question. So it's 2 full terms and 1 partial term. So I think it's a maximum of 8 years because each term is 3 years.
Right.
So if you had a full term and a full term, that's 6 years. If you had a partial term, that's probably another 1 to 2 years, maximum of 8 years.
Okay.
So a great example is Commissioner, I'm not making anybody sick
Or
here.
like me. I've had two partials and.
Yeah, so I think it's gonna come down to the maximum of 8, because we were actually a little confused about Commissioner Martin as well. You can see here that he started in 2018 with a partial term. He is rounding out his first theoretically full term here, and so is eligible for another full term. And thank you for being interested in.
I love being here. You guys are great.
And thank you, Commissioner Kerr, for being interested in continuing. We appreciate that continuity as well. It's really important, especially with the things that we've been working on for the last few years.
I included that. I didn't hear one.
For all of you, that council has noted at recent council meetings that they really, really appreciate when people spend time on their applications. It's a pretty simple form. You could just breeze through it. But when people put a level of detail where they can really get an understanding of the person and why they want to serve, they have said that's very helpful in making their decision, especially if they can't get a hold of you before the appointment.
Is it custom or tradition to have a council member like reach out to you?
It depends on the council person and frankly their time. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
I know Councilman Shimoni reached out to me before the first.
Yeah, Doug Carthy did for me. That's what I was.
Recently?
No, for my
Previous?
first one. That's why I was wondering if it was a thing that they're supposed to do or not.
I never had that, so I don't know.
Nobody sent word to me either.
Yeah, I'm like. I just
Yeah,
get kind
it
of-
just depends on the council members assigned to each one. All right, any further questions before I stop making you dizzy and scrolling up the map? I think we're good, Chair.
Righto. All right, moving to the July 4th event recap.
So we put this on the agenda because there were some comments during to from last time, and I just wanted the commission to have a chance. Unfortunately, both Amy and Haley, who would have given you a really incredible update on this, both are dealing with emergencies today. So are not able to be here, so you're stuck with me again. What I can tell you is that it was a really busy day from literally before sunup in order to get ready for the private permitted parade event downtown. There is the downtown mile that for years has kind of piggybacked, but not officially as part of that permit. That caused a little bit of that. The downtown mile event has grown. So the lesson learned this year is that we need to work with them to get them their own permit. They can still use the traffic control, the street closure like they've been doing, but we need them to have their own permit with insurance and everything. So we'll be working on that. Both Amy and Haley worked that event along with our emergency management team and our police department, fire department, other first responders. And then pretty much those same people worked the whole day. So the parade got done, and made the streets open back up maybe around 1 o'clock. By that time, we were already setting up out at Fort Tuthill for the Flag 4th Fest. So they got a little break to get something to eat, and then they headed out there. People started showing up out there even earlier than we anticipated. A lot of lessons learned out there. This was the first time for us to host this event at this location. So we knew there were going to be some hiccups. Huge shout out, Gino, to all the park staff. We had 8 to 10 park staff, including some that ended up being available and just showed up to help because they figured we could use it, but hadn't signed up ahead of time. They all helped with the parking. A lot of lessons learned there because those aren't our parking lots, right? Like, we're not familiar with that property. And while we had done kind of a briefing ahead of time, we didn't have the level of detail that it turned out that we should have, or we could have used in order to make that a most efficient process.
Where was the park?
This was all at, so the Flag Fourth Fest was our signature event put on at Fort Tuttle. We used the carnival lot and the quad. So parking in those areas around it. There was an event going on at the amphitheater that let out before our event started, and we were kind of hoping people would go from the parade to the symphony at the amphitheater and then kind of hang out and stay for the Flag Fourth Fest. I think some people probably did do that. But we had what we thought were a lot of food vendors. We needed more because the lines were really long, and we needed vendors that could whip out food faster. So probably a smaller menu. And some ran out of food. Many of them, I think I heard all of them, ran out of water. And the water fountains around the quad weren't clearly marked. One of them was outside the fence. So, just lots of things learned. But in the end, it was a safe event. Everyone was exhausted. It was a huge tax on city resources across the board, not just pros. County did great to help us out with the resources that they could. It was all Flagstaff Police Department. The Sheriff's Office did not have the resources to staff the event, even though it was technically their property. So there was a partnership going on there. And then, as the chair mentioned at our last meeting, the they call it the exit afterwards took a really long time just getting people out of there. I think, Chair, you said you sat for 45 minutes just waiting to get out. So, and I think part of that was there was a mix-up in communication that police was going to help us with exiting, and they didn't. So lessons learned there as well. Really great experience. It was a safe event. It was a fun event. People seemed to have a good time. We provided something of benefit to the community. But huge tax on city resources. Our teams were probably dragging in productivity for probably the whole week, right? Because that 4th was on a Tuesday. So, they're, especially our parks team, they were there till like 11:30, and then they're back at work at 5:30 in the morning. Some of them came in a little later, but still, you're just tired because we all know when you get home from something like that, you don't go straight to sleep. So it's been our recommendation that we not do that.
You don't want to do it again? You like to
Just
come
to
back?
be honest, I mean, it was a lot more people than we expected, and it was very, very full, and we just don't see how we can grow. Like the event, if it continued annually, will just continue to grow, and there's just not the room or the staffing resources available for it. On top of that, our city manager has been working with the Downtown Business Alliance for years, and they would love for something to happen downtown. That's our core business center. It definitely makes sense to keep something in the middle of town, supporting those businesses, and just having a good time in downtown, much like we do on New Year's Eve, right? So that's what we're working on for next year. A laser light show is really not conducive in the downtown area, but we are looking at some cool things like they call it architectural mapping, where it's like projection on the buildings. So that's one thing. We're also looking at drones, although also not exactly conducive to a downtown area. You can't have the drones flying above people. They need a large space to take off and land. All of those options very, very expensive. So we're going to be putting together some proposals and taking them forward through our budget process that's getting ready to start. And hopefully have more than a couple months notice to plan the event.
Because this is in a couple of months, that's a lot.
We started, so we got the approval on the Fortet Hill location for this year, I believe in March.
Oh,
And so really hit the ground running in April.
you guys should like pat yourself on the back, that's a lot.
It was incredible, but especially Haley and her work, and just pulling it all together, and then couldn't have done it without the team. You know, Recreation had a huge contingent there as well, and Gino's team there as well. So all that was very good, but again, pretty taxing, and we want to be able to have more time to plan next year, which is why we're starting now.
Yeah.
So we're already meeting with vendors, we're meeting with the Downtown Business Alliance and our partners in Economic Vitality, tourism and all of that. And so we'll keep you posted.
Sounds great. Sounds like a great event though.
Any other feedback or comments? This was really
Not gonna happen.
not preferred, no.
I think the downtown thing sounds great, just like you said, I mean, it benefits all the vendors, restaurants. The reason I asked that is because, kind of tailing off what you're saying, is there a way that you can include the Tut Hill thing, but maybe create a easy way to get downtown, like some sort of. I just, I've heard a lot of people really liked live this year. I thought you guys did such a good job with Tut Hill and having some space there.
Yeah, I can tell you, it just was too hard, and there wouldn't be a way to add an element to it
Yeah.
successfully.
Not even if the counties like was able to.
I think the county was all in as much as they could. They're getting ready for the fair. They don't have a lot of staff. I mean, Ricky can speak to the resources available at the county. It's like what the resources that they had available where they were helping us, and it was still a lot crazy.
Well, I can't imagine how difficult that must have been. A new location, short notice. You know, trying to staff them on a holiday, and that's people who come in for that, and all of that combined, that is so much to handle. You know, my personal experience running events, they're extremely difficult. There's a reason why I retired from doing those. Those are really hard. So I think you guys did a really great job, and I'm no doubt this next year will be just as great.
Yeah, the added element of this not being our property, like when the city puts on our own events, it's on our property and we know it,
You know where
like
it
the
is.
parks team, it was that park inside and out, and
Right.
the events team does too, and yeah, so that was just an added layer of complexity that I don't think we really knew full well what that would mean.
And you never, any new event that you do in a new location, you never fully figure it out till you actually do it the first time. And then you're like, oh.
Yeah.
You know, we need to do this and this and that. And you don't know that till you actually do it.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys can consider something at Fort since it's closer.
So, yeah, any,
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a great event. I love that the city and the county got to collaborate on something, and if nothing else, the lesson learned is that the city and the county can collaborate and put on a heck of an event together, and hopefully that's the lesson that gets perpetuated on with more collaborations, whether it's 4th of July or not. But even though I'm not with the Parks and Rec department anymore, I love to see all the groups getting together. Which is actually why I like that Sun Corridor Trail, because it has a lot of collaboration, has a lot of people all marching towards one direction. So anyway, great event. I had a great time. My family had a great time. And even if it's a one-off, I thought y'all did a great job. And thank you for the the recap and really provide that full perspective, because it's true, it's a Tuesday. So, you come to work on a Monday and you have a kind of a normal day, but you're really getting ready for this event. Then you have the event, which it's a holiday. So then you have people getting paid and then people working on top of that. So you got to figure out, anyway, there's a lot that goes into it. So hats off for everybody for doing such a fantastic job and providing a wonderful event for the community that they came out to. So yeah, it is a fantastic job, whether it's downtown or elsewhere. You guys will rock it wherever it's at.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And so when you guys are in the process of, kind of brainstorming and thinking of those ideas, can this group be included in some of that?
We can keep you posted. A lot of what we're able to do. So downtown just has a lot of logistics to go through. I'll just let you know, like Heritage Square has a weight limit on it because there's a parking garage underneath. So we have to limit the number of people and stuff. Think tables, tents, music equipment, bands, arts and crafts. We have to be very careful about what we put on the square. So we can't just crowd the square. So we're trying to think of ways to spread people out. To perhaps do multiple shows, like spread the timing out as well, maybe even over multiple days, so it doesn't feel like you have to show up on the 4th to enjoy that activity. We can provide regular updates, but I would hesitate to have you involved in the brainstorming and planning of it, because that can just get a little squirrely, for lack of a better phrase. Yeah. If you have ideas, sponsorships, resources that you think would be good for us to be aware of, feel free to email Amy or Haley or me, and we'll get it considered. But thank you for the offer.
It was more just about me being nosy. I don't really need to thank you.
We can certainly keep the commission up to date as we go through, like, what are we presenting to budget team? What do we think we're going to do as we start to bring in those details?
I think part of the fun of being in this group is knowing about stuff.
Being in the know, yeah.
Happens.
Gives like private presentations on that.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff, like the Sun Corridor thing, like there's a million things that I thought of. It's just kind of neat. Yeah. So that's, like I said, that's just me.
Yeah. And supportive.
More nosy.
Give you an out. All right, I think we're good on that topic.
All right. Well, thank you for the event recap. Councilmember Harris, do you have any information for us today?
No, I don't, other than just to say that I went on an amazing tour with Parks and Recs and open spaces. So I saw most, if not all of our parks, our open spaces, and just kind of heard some ideas that they have for things that they'd like to do. And I went to see what I think is Flagstaff's only waterfall. So hoo-hoo, lucky me. And I really enjoyed it. I would say people should go out and do that. In fact, I'm gonna suggest to the council that they take a mile hike. If I can do it, anybody can do it. So to go see the waterfall and just kind of hang out for a little bit. It's just such a beautiful space. And even for folks who may not be outdoor enthusiasts, I think they would just enjoy the peace and quiet, so that's all that I have, but it was a great time. And thank you again for the tour and for the time that the staff took. So appreciate that. And that's it for me.
We appreciated your time, council member, and for anyone who's wondering where that beautiful waterfall is, either we have the chair, I think we have the chair of the Open Spaces Commission here, so thank you for joining us. I want to acknowledge that. And it's a hike that we took Councilmember Harris to out of Picture Canyon. And the waterfall hike is a fairly, it's not super hard, right?
No, it's easy. I did it.
Back that you can do, to see.
Yeah, my son's coming home in October, and so he's a videographer, photographer. So I'm like, we have to go to the falls when you come. We have to go. So he says, okay, Mom. So anyway, so that's how excited I was about it.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing your experiences that you had with the pros team and getting out there. And now you can tell everybody about the parks and natural areas and the water. Yeah, that's what we need, more advocates, right? And now we got you.
Yeah.
Council members, do any of you have any questions, thoughts, anything for Council Member Harris? Okie dokie. Well, thank you for your for attending today, Council Member, and we appreciate your time today. Let's see, we all received our monthly highlights from the pros team. Does anybody have anything they want to pull out, talk about, ask questions on, from commissioners first and then staff second? Commissioners, anything you want to talk through?
So good. It's a great report.
Oh,
Love the new air hockey table. Looks slick.
hockey table?
Oh, absolutely. That's a big hit. With kids back in school, coming down, lunchtime is big, or right after school, that's the first place they're trying to go. So they're off the table, so it's a big hit.
Great. Try to get people to get.
Now let's ask the other question. What does staff think about the noise at the air hockey table?
I'm typically a door open person, but it's closed. It's like this. Yeah, because it's right, kind of right there off, so it's louder than a normal one. This one out here. That's probably not, but at the proximity, I mean, it's probably like, if the air hockey table is here, my wall is right there, so it's like,
And it's constant, click, clack, click, clack, click.
it's like pickleball. Oh, yeah. So I'm just thinking that's the side of the years. So it's good.
Just had to say it.
Awesome. Well, great stuff. I love seeing those updates. And it looks like kind of event season really wraps up for you guys in August. There's gonna be a couple things in September, right? I saw something about the Route 66 car show coming back in the newspaper. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so we had them out, I think it was this last Saturday. There was a car show at City Hall and Wheeler Park parking lot. And I believe next summer is the 100th anniversary, I want to say. And so there's a group working on that. Events are kind of winding down in terms of private events at our parks. We do have kind of the bookend that's coming up is Oktoberfest, which is the first Saturday of October. And then we go into one of our new, thank you, council member, appreciate your time. What's the question?
It just, we were just wondering about events.
Anytime, you just let us know. Yeah, so we've got Winter Wonderland coming up, and then 4th of July, we're starting to plan those events as well.
Awesome. Yeah, so great stuff coming up as we head into the fall. Commissioners, other questions about the report or the highlight?
Aren't you guys we call the parade for Christmas?
That is also the Chamber of Commerce. And they also do the 4th of July parade.
Oh, they do.
They do.
We just do the Winter Wonderland one.
We do Winter Wonderland, which is our tree lighting.
Yeah.
That the parade is somebody different.
That's the Chamber of Commerce.
That's a privately.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Private.
Permitted by the city, but run by a private organization,
Gotcha.
like the rodeo at Tut Hill type of thing.
Exactly.
Or any of the other events.
Well, how about any other informational items to and from commissioners and staff?
The only thing I can think, council member Harris had to drop off, but council has been on their summer recess. That's when we took advantage of the extra time that council member Harris had to get her out and about. They start back up on Monday. So next week's council meeting will be on Monday, because on Tuesday, which is when they normally would be, they're all heading to the state League of Cities conference. I think it's League of Cities. Anyway, it's a state conference that they all go to. So the meeting will be on Monday. Yeah. Leave it there.
Did you say this Monday?
Monday, coming up on Monday at 3 o'clock.
Same day any news starts up.
Is it?
Mhm.
It's also the same day of our Open Spaces Commission meeting, so I won't be there. I'll be at the council meeting. And then after that, they'll be back on Tuesdays.
Anything else, commissioners, for the staff or vice versa?
No, the new library entry is open, so if you haven't checked it out, go take a look. It's kind of exciting.
Buffalo Park's almost done. Looks really great.
Yeah, I think we had an update on that at our last meeting. We are this close, right, Martin?
20 minutes.
We just have some signage left and then we're done.
Okay, look, done.
And I think we're gonna try to do, or are we doing like a opening, some sort of, not really a ribbon cutting, but some sort of celebration?
There will be a celebration for the Buffalo project.
Toilet paper cutting.
There you go.
How about what kind of agenda items might be on the September 18th meeting? Commissioners, any thoughts from y'all or staff? Anything you guys are thinking about right now?
Can we get any updates on any park developments? Like maybe West Side Park? That's still going.
There's no updates to tell you about. But we'll look, and we might have one update that I have in mind.
Pollinator program. Been a long time since.
What about the pollinator program?
Just an update. Is there any interesting findings? I'm just listing out ideas.
Do we have any updates to share on that?
Not that I can think of at this time.
We can think through it over the next month and
Or we can have a short meeting.
I'm sure Amy can come up with anything. So one thing that Commissioner or Chair Conway had mentioned last time was starting to go around and have some recreation supervisor updates, like about the programs in their center. So, and it also kind of exposes them to the commission and gives them some experience. So I think the commission would really love to hear about those programs from staff. Even if they supported you doing a presentation. Yeah, just kind of like what's going on at each center, I think would be nice.
Any new programs or anything?
And we could Also, after we get through the rec centers, then we can bring in athletics and events for any updates. So maybe just like a round robin of pros.
Maybe an update on the contract with the pickleball, did that go through?
That's the thing that I'm thinking of that we might be able to put and have us have an update for you next month, maybe.
Okay, cause I know it got messed up in May.
We're working on a lot of things right now. It is moving forward.
You said you were updating the plan on that to try to ship the carts to the north this far.
Yeah, we're working on several different things.
Do we have to do like chair elections again? This is gonna be received like.
Yeah, I thought that we'll continue with, we have co-chair Parsons, who had previously agreed to chair our meetings.
He's chaired a few of them.
Yeah.
Quite a few,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think
Well, I don't like continuing with Kath.
what we typically do is
I don't know.
chair and co-chair in January.
January.
So if you can get us to January, I think that would be great. And that'll give our new member or members time to kind of get the feel of everything.
Like when do they typically find out when they are in or?
I think we just get like an email, like, or like.
So they'll be appointed on Monday, and then you should get an email within a week. The new commissioners will get that email within a week or so for the city clerk to get that out. However, I am usually paying attention at the council meeting, and if I have their contact info, I'll reach out, or Amy will reach out to them directly. If they're new, we need to get them. Then I usually meet with them and give them some basic information of like, here's what we do in pros.
Here's what-
Like, here's where we fall within the city, and here's what the commission has been working on, and here's some ongoing projects. Yeah, I did that, I think, with most of them, so.
I got a crash course.
I mean. Would I, probably not for September, but thinking about what is coming, with potential bonds. Is that something we could discuss, or is that something that Pros is looking to put on a ballot, not this year? Those were so close, obviously, but
So
in 2020.
we can talk about future ballot questions. Yep,
Yeah, this is right around the time for the start.
not necessarily, we won't necessarily be looking for bonds for projects, but as we get into our budget, you'll also start getting some budget updates, and with Chair Wilson on, we as staff need to figure out the best time to have a joint Parks and Rec and open space meeting to talk about budget. All budget all day long.
That sounds fun.
And have a joint meeting. Similar, so that's kind of the outcome of our previous discussion about combining the commissions again or not. And we agreed that a joint meeting a couple of times a year would be a good.
When is the BBB going up again? 2024?
That's why I said future ballot questions.
2024.
Okay, sounds pretty stacked for the next little bit here.
Yep, we'll talk through it and put together. Thanks for the ideas.
Perfect. I closed my agenda, but I'm pretty sure we're at the end of it. Let's see, scrolling, and then here we are. We are at the end of it. So that means we can officially adjourn. And once again, thank you guys. I've really enjoyed serving with y'all and serving the community. And I hope we can do this again soon.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ricky.
Don't be a stranger.
Thank you all.